Welcome to a remote learning lesson for your Year 7 health. Unfortunately, we're back here again learning from home, and for you guys it might be a little bit different because it's remote learning with your high school rather than primary school last time around. So the way that we're going to work our health lesson in this remote learning is that you'll watch this video to start with as it says in your lesson plan, and then you will pause the video as I prompt you to complete some work, the same work that you would complete in the classroom. It's just a little bit different because you don't have your friends next to you that you're able to have that discussion with. Then we've got a couple of tasks that we're going to ask you to complete. And I think that we might just leave it open for you to either save those tasks to show your teacher when you return to school, or if for some reason we have any changed circumstances with this lockdown or remote learning, then we'll open up a learning task to have them submitted. But as for now, we're going to get you to save these documents on your computer at the end of today's lesson. So let me just show you a few things about today's lesson. Obviously, we've got our lesson plan, which will be on the front page here. And if you click over into the resources tab of your Year 7 health, you will have these options here. When you go into Year 7 health, you want to click into semester 1 and then term 1, and all of the work for this week will be under the folder of week 4. I'm going to guide you through a PowerPoint, and then I'm going to give you the tasks, and that's where you'll find the tasks. So here's our PowerPoint. We've actually moved on from the dimensions of health that we learnt about last week with the dimensions of health and well-being, or 5 of them, and now we're focusing on what it means to be physically active or physical activity. So Year 7s, physical activity. It takes many shapes, many forms, looks different ways for different people completing it. I think this would go really well in your notebook or on your laptop as a set of notes. And if you can change the wording of this to make it your own, that shows an understanding even better. So you can be physically active and have your body moving in your home, at school, at work for people who have a job, and outside in the community. And I think if you were to really stop and think about it, you would have seen how you or your parents, siblings, or guardians have been active in your house. You might have a gym set up in your house. You might have a big backyard. You might have a driveway that you can ride your bike or play basketball in. At school, we see people running around with a basketball, with cricket setups. You name it. There are people being active at school all the time, and that sometimes happens in PE or sport classes, or just at a recess or lunch. Sport, physical activity, exercise, all different types of being active can take place during people's leisure time when they have their own free time. It can be a part of travel. It can be for fun and for playing. You might be involved in a game. It could be a PE class. Sometimes physical activity is organised, and sometimes it's just not organised. You might think about you're running late for a bus and you have to run to catch that bus. That would be non-organised activity. So I want you to think about this. If you are somebody who is physically active, how could that help you with your social health and well-being? There's one example there. I'd love for you to think of another one or two and write them into your notes. What about for mental health and well-being? Yes, we know that it helps with stress and anxiety and lowering that, but can it help in another way for mental health and well-being? What about physical health and well-being? If we're being more physically active and moving more, it will help us with our coordination and our skills. But are there other elements that help in the physical health and well-being side? How about emotional? How does it help you with managing your emotions, recognizing emotions? What about spiritual, with your sense of belonging? Obviously, there's one example there of belonging to a sporting team, but can you think of any others? I'd love for you to pause the video now and think about another benefit of being physically active for each of those 5 categories. Now it's time to have a look at what the government in Australia believes through research is the adequate or the right amount of physical activity that people should be doing. These guidelines are divided into different age categories, and I'm going to show you here the age category of 5 to 12-year-olds and 13 to 17-year-olds. And the Australian government deems that you should be active for at least 60 minutes of what they call moderate to vigorous. Now, that means medium to high levels of intensity. So that means a little bit of huffing and puffing and a lot of your heart rate racing and huffing and puffing. Physical activity on every day of the week. Physical activity should include a variety of aerobic, which means continuous movements, things like walking, running, cycling, and activity that strengthens your muscles and bones, which can be things like jumping and landing, but also lifting heavy things. To reduce risks to health, children and young people should try and minimise the time that they spend being sedentary and having screen time. That means sitting and watching TV or playing video games to no more than 2 hours a day. Let's have a look at an average week for you. Look at your Monday, look at your Tuesday, all the way through to your weekend. What is your average physical activity amount? Are you getting 60 minutes of medium to high or moderate to vigorous physical activity every day of the week, including some muscle and bone strengthening stuff? Where it says here, discuss 3 influences, I'd like you to write them down. So this is another time where you should pause this video, have a look at your week. Don't write it in too much detail, but have a look at, are you doing enough compared to the guidelines? And what are some things that are either helping you meet the guidelines or making you not meet those guidelines? Pause the video now. Welcome back. This says it's going to be a class brainstorm, but what I think we should really do with this is I just want you to think about it. Some people will be able to answer it and some will really struggle. But what does it mean to be fit? And what does it mean to be active? Is it that everyone can be active but only some people are fit? Is it that everyone is fit but only some people can be active? And these 2 questions here. Is it possible that you could be fit but not be active? What about, is it possible for you to be active but not be fit? I want you to really think about this, and what I would like you to do is write down in your books just a quick little answer to each of those questions, in your opinion. You don't need to research it, you don't need to find out the exact reason, just write down what you think is correct about these answers. Finally, I've got a series of questions here before we move on to our activities that you will add to your notes. Of this list of people, who is the fittest person? A marathon runner, a sumo wrestler? A sprinter who sprints 100 metres? Or a hockey player? Or is it a bricklayer? Justify your choice. Tell me why you think that's the case. Also, could you judge someone's fitness by just looking at them? Why do you think you could? Or maybe you couldn't. Finally, is it possible that everyone could use the same style of training to improve their fitness? Maybe, maybe not. You tell me. Explain why or why not. Okay, Year 7s, it's time to move on to our 2 activities for the day. So these 2 activities are the 2 Microsoft Word documents that you would find in that Week 4 folder of Term 1 under Semester 1 for Compass Resources. So, what I would like you to do, it says here to print this out, use scissors, cut and paste these. I'm happy for you to highlight and cut or paste. So, what we need to do is we need to look at the 4 categories below and each of the examples here and cut and paste them where we believe they should end up. So, I'm reading this and it says, sitting, watching TV or reading a book. Would that be a high level of running intensity, which means huffing and puffing a lot, huffing and puffing a little bit, being moving but not really huffing and puffing a lot, or am I really just sitting still not doing anything? Well, in my opinion, sitting, watching TV or reading a book, I would cut that out and paste that into sedentary behaviour. I would then go through the rest of this list, highlight and cut and paste into the table below. Don't forget to save that document somewhere in your health folder on your computer to show your teacher when we return to school. Finally, we've got a bit of a fun activity which involves a little bit of creativity, Year 7s. We would like you to create a brochure to encourage people to become healthier and more physically active. If you don't know what I mean by a brochure, I just want to show you an example of what a brochure looks like. It's this piece of paper that folds out that has information on each of the insides of the folds. You can open up Microsoft Word and use a brochure template, or if you've got a blank piece of paper or an exercise book, you can turn it on its side and you can simply create it by hand. What I would like you to do is look through this document and find out the information that you can place in here. We need 3 tips or tricks or ideas from each of the categories or some of the categories, if you can't think of all, of how you might be able to get people to do more regular physical activity and exercise. We want you to promote physical activity and exercise. We want you to make people want to be fitter and healthier and more active. So have a read through this document, create your brochure, and be ready to show it to your teacher when we return to school. Hopefully, our first online lesson has had plenty of work for you to be able to work through. Your teachers are always available. They might send you a Zoom link for you to be able to check in with them, whether it's at the start of the lesson or after you've viewed this video or towards the end. Otherwise, your teacher will always respond via email. So don't forget, if you're stuck on anything, please ask for assistance. Hopefully, we'll see you really soon.